Hello, welcome to the Process Over Profit podcast. My name is Jack Fleming, and I'm here with Matthew Coleman of Atlantic Computer Services. How are you?
Good, Jack. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Before we start, just a reminder that this podcast is brought to you by Entra, a new professional network built for entrepreneurs, investors, creators, and freelancers. You can easily create content, grow your network, and meet new like-minded people in rooms and events on the app. All listeners can sign up for free and also get upgraded to Entra Pro, which gives you access to over $50,000 in deals and discounts with over 100 partners. Go to entree.link/Jack. And make sure to connect with me on there too, at Jack Does Marketing. But we'll get into it. Matthew, if you could give us a little background on who you are, just so our listeners and live viewers know, that would be fantastic. I know you're sales and marketing director for ACS, but you're super involved in computer and tech and cybersecurity and all. And so I'd love to know the connection between those.
Sure. So I've been with ACS here in Wilmington for the last year. And sales and marketing has always been something that I've really enjoyed. I got my start in local radio with Cumulus Broadcasting here, and then worked for my employees in employee engagement, employee recognition for about 6 years as marketing director there. And the opportunity came to work with the ACS team in towards the middle of last year. And it's been a really great opportunity. It's been a really great learning experience. And the world of tech and IT has just, everything that we do now is dependent on tech, dependent on computers, depending on networking. And it was an opportunity to get involved with something that is, it's something that every business needs. And being able to provide a service like this has really helped develop a mission as far as what it is that we're trying to do. And that comes from just doing good business as far as keeping computers running and things like that. And also on the cybersecurity front, trying to help people protect and maintain everything that they've worked so hard for.
Do you have a mission statement for ACS, or that you've maybe made as the sales and marketing guy? Do you have something that's like a sentence about exactly what you do that covers everything?
Well, we've been kind of transforming some of those things and playing with a couple different ideas, but basically it all boils down to worry-free IT. So what we do is we try to provide people. I was asked yesterday for a client testimonial, and one of the things I said was the best testimonial we get is when we never hear from our clients, because we like for everything to just keep running, for there to be no problems. One of my jokes is my full confession is that I don't want you to ever have to call my customer service department, because if you're not calling them, that means that everything's running and we're doing exactly what we're supposed to do. But it all boils down to people really just want computers to turn on and run when they're supposed to, how they're supposed to, and they want to know that they're going to be there and that they can depend on them, and that's what we try to provide for them.
I definitely think there's a lot. It's still technology. It's always changing and evolving, and I definitely know whenever my computer has a mishap, I'm definitely like, I don't know what to do with my life. I'm running around, run to the Mac store. I'm like, here, just take it. I don't know what to do. I need it as soon as possible.
That's right.
So it's definitely one of those things that's still not very known by the consumer, but they tend to rely on it so much. And so that's really interesting about IT. But I would really honestly want to jump into whole cybersecurity a ton, because it's definitely super timely in the startup world right now, and even in the big Fortune 500 business world, in that we just had a huge gas crisis kind of thing going on due to cybersecurity issues. And so I really sort of want to talk about that, and mainly just how businesses can just put in things in place for cybersecurity, things we can easily do. Obviously, like, we would all love to hire internal cyber experts and all. Maybe some people don't have that luxury, and so I'd love to chat sort of about all of that, and we could sort of break it up into little parts here and there.
Sure.
But obviously, it's a super timely subject. Are there any other? Obviously, we mostly know about the whole coastal pipeline thing. Do you have any info on that from your end? I know we all can see, like, oh, okay, they paid ransom, we can get our gas back. That's all public knowledge. What do you know from your end?
So it's the Colonial pipeline thing was very interesting, because in our industry, we have the benefit of knowing, well, I wouldn't call it a benefit, but we have the ability to know that these things are happening all the time. So the Colonial pipeline just made it real for so many people, because it finally touched something that everyone is affected by with the gas shortage. And that was really telling to me, because one of the things that we struggle with is getting, especially small businesses, to understand that this isn't a big corporation thing. This isn't just about the Targets of the world and the Home Depots of the world. Those are big news stories, and they make the news. But anyone is susceptible to this type of thing. As a matter of fact, the Colonial pipeline, they're still they're looking for some clarification, or as much clarification as we're going to get anyway, about how it actually happened. But it looks like it was through some compromised VPN credentials, which is like remote access, remote work. And they're not 100% sure if it was one of these things where they do kind of they cast a wide net looking for password information, user login credentials, and whether or not they just got lucky, or if the information was stolen and just wound up on the dark web where other people were able to get, like through some
So you're saying basically like
or a leak.
A high up person logged into their Facebook at a coffee shop, and it basically things were stolen.
Well, you want to know, it's almost even simpler than that. So what happens more often than not, and I've been guilty of this kind of thing, and I'm sure a lot of people are, is we tend to use the same email and the same password for like 1,000 different accounts, right? All the different things have, your email and then password one or your dog's name or whatever. And I've done a video with a buddy of mine that, on password management that went through like the top 10 most common passwords. And if you've got one of those, get rid of it right now. But
password 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
That's right. Even with the little dollar signs for the S's, that kind of thing. But what happens is it's not necessarily about, breaking into your business and getting your password and your credentials that way. They break into, some a social networking site or a gaming site that you might be, there have been some apps like mobile game apps that have been compromised where people get your information like that. So one of the best practices that I tell people all the time is to go through, one of the first steps that you can take is go through and update passwords. You'd like to do it on a regular basis, but at least update it so that you're not using the same password and the same username combination everywhere. Because that's probably one of the first things. Because what happens is somebody breaks into that mobile gaming app, gets 1 million users, username and password, and then puts it up on what we call the dark web, which is where other bad actors are able to access that information for sale or for free or however.
That's crazy. Yeah. That's it's definitely something I want to be more cautious of, especially when I found one like a coffee shop and I need a VPN whenever I'm there, just so people just don't steal my stuff. Because I know of a thing that literally will go and it would like take you off of Wi-Fi and connect you to their Wi-Fi, and they'll just take all your stuff. I don't know how I don't know how that I researched that thing. I think it's called like a pineapple or something. But I know
there's a couple different names for those kinds of things.
Yeah.
But yeah, basically it's same thing applies to like hotel Wi-Fi or anywhere where you get access to a public Wi-Fi that other people have access to at the same time.
So that's a good tip, is make sure you're using VPNs, correct? And then changing passwords. Are there any other tips that just small things that businesses can do to protect, maybe like website hosting stuff, maybe just email stuff? I don't know.
Well, I like to tell people that your first line of defense against all of this stuff is actually with your employees, right? So there was a day when you slapped some antivirus on your computer and everything was fine and you could set it and forget it. But those days, yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's another story. But those days are gone, because what happens is hackers and what we call threat actors are it's basically a cat and mouse game. So every time you figure out a way to stop what they're doing, they figure out a way to get around it, right? And so one of the things that's probably the more popular ways to get into businesses now is what we call phishing. That's phishing with a PH. And phishing is basically a lot like what it sounds like. People drop lines in the water and they just keep doing it over and over again until they find somebody who answers them, and then they start to scam. So it works like this. I would send somebody in your company an email, right? And what you can do with an email is you can actually use any random Gmail address. It could be, any string of characters at gmail.com, but you can change the from name so that it would say, from John Smith, CEO, and then it would look like a legit email, and the subject line would say something like, need your help. And then the email says, hey, walking into a client meeting, We're closing a big deal. I need you to wire $8 million to this account. Click on this link and set up the wire transfer. I won't be able to answer my phone for the next 20 minutes, but I need this done ASAP. Can you help me out? And somebody thinks that they are. This usually happens with admin assistants or new employees who are trying their best to be Johnny on the spot and help out and do right by the CEO. And so they'll click on the link. They'll upload the credentials. They'll send all this banking information or just send the money, and the deal is done. So one of the things that you can do is, there are some red flags to check in those emails. First of all, was it sent in an appropriate time? So a lot of our attacks come from China and Russia and India. So if the email is showing up in your inbox at like 2:00 in the morning or 3:30 or something like that, it's probably sent at an odd time. Broken English is a big red flag. Like, if words are misspelled or if, the sentence structure is off, that's another red flag, especially if your CEO doesn't use broken English on a regular basis. Another thing that you can do is, if you're looking at it on a computer, a lot of people don't know this, you can actually hover over a link before you click on it, and it'll show what the actual website is, usually in the bottom left corner of your web browser. So if it says, yourcompany.com, but you hover over it and then it's got like some string of characters, and then maybe it's a random website, or it's a exe file or something like that, then you know that it's a bogus link. And then, like I said before, too, with the changing of the names on the email, the from name, just making sure that it matches up. Does your CEO normally email you from Gmail account to talk about business? Is this a request that they would have ever made before? Do you know anything about a big meeting that they were going into? It's one of those cases where, if something looks funny, it probably is. And I think
my email signature too. I feel
exactly,
like if companies, they'll probably have a pretty consistent email signature where it would be like face, name, title, blah, blah, blah. Honestly, you'll probably get a text email from someone with the link.
That's right. And
I think there's even more smaller cases that more, I guess, consumer based, but we're talking about business. But like the consumer is almost like, oh, my child's in the hospital. Click on this link. I think it's even just like click on the link to follow it is just enough. Less of, oh, wire me $8 million, because that's a big task already. Versus this just like, oh, I saw you in this photo. Click here to see it. I get that a lot.
Yeah. What's funny too is there are, some of those things. So that is like a one-off type of scam, where they get you to take some action that they get something immediately. Another thing that we had a client who's one of their remote salespeople, their email had been hacked, and I can't remember exactly how we found out, but there was some suspicious activity that was going on. And so what the hacker did was, however they gained access, they wound up with the username and password and login credentials. So what they did was in the sidebar of most email providers, there's a folder system where you can create folders to organize your messages. And what they had done was created a subfolder of a subfolder of a subfolder, and then created a rule that forwarded emails or auto-copied emails to that folder that had words like invoice or payroll or human resources or receipt or anything that had to do with financials in the subject line or in the body of the email. And what they would do, the idea is, once they have access, they don't change anything. They don't want to lock down your email. What they do is they just kind of pop in from time to time. They go and check their folder, see if there's any invoices, any personal information that they can use from there. So it's basically like, it's like a little honeypot that they can go back to and check on a regular basis, that they have very quiet, very discreet access to, and they just go back until they're locked out, and they grab whatever information they needed to get out of that folder.
That's crazy. Yeah, I don't know anything about this space, and that's crazy to me. I just thought maybe they would just forward stuff to them. They'll put in their email and just get forwarded emails or something. I don't know.
There's a million different scams that are out there, which is why it's so important to kind of take steps. to protect yourself. If you're a business owner, protect yourself and your business and your employees and your clients. Because every one of these people has different motives, right? Like the Colonial pipeline thing wasn't about stealing information. It was about, it was a ransomware attack. And the idea behind a ransomware attack tends to be twofold. So some people will steal client or business data. They'll lock it down. They'll hold it until you pay the ransom, and then you get all your data back. Other people are just about business interruption, which is what happened with Colonial. You know, and as a business owner, you kind of have to decide, how long can we go without doing business? You know, how long will our business survive without doing business? And that's the kind of risk that you're taking. For some people, that's, you know, we could go a week without production. We could go a day without production. Some people can't go an hour without production.
The whole East Coast.
That's right. That's right. And in a case like that, it's that was like I said, it was finally something that hit everybody, and everybody really got full blast what all these other businesses have been dealing with behind the scenes.
And on the consumer end, we're just like, just pay it and get on with life. Like we don't need to deal with this. Let's just go.
Well, you know what's funny about that is, so I don't know if it's a little known secret, but I guess, you know, when you're dealing with the hackers or the bad actors, so it's almost like a very customer service driven industry, because some people in the cyber insurance or in the cyber forensics field will tell you to just go ahead and pay the ransom. The FBI and the SEC and things like that, they don't want you to pay basically, we don't negotiate with terrorists type stance. But what happens is, from the hacker's side or from the bad guy's side, they want to give you back your information. They don't want to be known as the hacker who doesn't cooperate, because the next time they go and do it with another business, they know that they won't get the ransom. So it's actually incumbent upon them to go ahead and once they get their money or negotiate back and forth on whatever that amount might be, to give you back everything that you got, so that they can you can move on with your life, and they can go on to their next thing and keep their reputation intact as to somebody who makes good on giving back giving back what they stole.
So we touched on making sure your employees sort of know what's going on, and then that just comes down to personally, it's like, okay, seeing how things are worded, just basically the context of emails and whatnot's coming in. Do you have any other? I mean, that was an interesting, I guess, story, because that's probably a real life scenario that someone would. Do you have any really cool story? I feel like you're almost like, I'm not like a police officer almost, but like you almost like can, if you like catch something or you like defend against something, I guess that probably gives you joy. So do you have any like cool stories of, I guess, y'all put things in place and you're able to like crack down on something that was going on, or anything like that?
Yeah, so you know, I can't give too many specifics because of client confidentiality, but it is really interesting to see. Like, we use things called DNS filtering, which blocks employees from being able to, or anybody for that, it's to be able to go to certain websites using a work computer. Spam filtering is another one of those things. All these things that I'm describing are what we encourage people to do in a process we call creating rings of protection, right? So the employee training, which I actually have sitting in my inbox, I've got to take mine today, is you know, one of the rings. The DNS filtering, blocking out the bad websites, is another ring. Spam filtering is another ring, and then antivirus would be another ring. So all these things work together, because, you know, having one thing in place is just a matter of whether or not the hacker can get over that one hurdle, right? But if you've got 5 hurdles in place, it makes things a little tougher. But, you know, something like you mentioned, being able to see everything, taking action. The spam filtering is a very interesting one, because I don't think people in the day and age of newsletters, and this would be on a consumer front too, or you know, a typical anybody who's got an email, you don't really realize how many newsletters and things that you signed up to, that you get on a regular basis. And a lot of times what happens is one of two things. Either those newsletters have agreements with other people, like if you were ever to refinance your mortgage or something like that, all of a sudden you get a million and billion financial offers for credit cards and personal loans and other mortgage companies or whatever. because they have agreements to share your information if you don't opt out of them.
Mm-hmm.
And also, you also set yourself up for, well, you don't set yourself up, but you're at risk of these sites being hacked in a data breach and then all that information winding up somewhere else just because someone came in and stole it. And that's where you start to see really bizarre spam emails come through that, I mean, I get sometimes that it's not even a very well thought out attack. It's just an email with a link in it. It's not even, it's like, come on, at least try, just try. Yeah. But,
I mean, that's showing them that they're lazy too. Like you mentioned, the 5 rings thing is like, if there are 5 rings, they're not probably going to want to defend against, probably good over 1. And then like, I'm sick of the second one. Like you said, it is an evolving thing in that like the I guess hackers want to like, and they're continually finding new ways to get in. And that's just generally in software too. It's just people just know how to do things enough to where it's just like you can have things open basically because someone's going to figure out either way. But it's just showing you that they're lazy.
Yeah. And, you know, a lot of it too is that you mentioned before that technology and IT are one of those things that for a lot of people, it's foreign language. So they just don't understand, but we're so dependent on it that people can really take advantage of that. There are some things that we have some people on our team, the technicians and engineers, they're very well qualified to do some things that I would never be able to do as a layperson from a technology standpoint. Like I understand IT from the business standpoint in the sense that it makes there, but when it comes to the technology side of these guys are amazing at what they do. And to people who have that same level of knowledge but use it for nefarious purposes can be very dangerous. I mean, they are worthy adversaries, believe me. And that's why I say, you know, if you are in a small business, if you have something that's worth protecting, you really need the help of professionals to do it. There are some things,
I know I've been told on the more of the religion side, it's Satan knows more about the Bible than you do. It's sort of almost like in the same sense as hackers and security and IT, is that they know more about it than you do, most likely.
Absolutely. Because there's a lot of money in being the bad guy. There's more money in being the bad guy than there is in being the good guy.
That's crazy. Do you see any advances that we can take? Maybe any new products out there right now that you see can be super helpful, or any new tactics or anything like future related to the subject? Now is always evolving, but do you see any like direct, like, okay, this is going to happen because this software is going to come out, or you can make some bold assumptions, I guess?
Well, one thing that we have been transitioning to is so everybody knows Norton, everybody knows McAfee as far as antivirus goes. There's a product out there called BitDefender that we've started using quite a bit that actually includes a piece of AI. So in the old system, your antivirus would be on your computer, and a hacker figures out a way to get around that. And then forever how long it takes the antivirus software to release an update, that virus is doing what it does, right? And then when the update is released, it stops the virus from spreading anymore. Does that make sense? So with the new styles of antivirus that are coming out, they include some AI so that if something gets around the antivirus actually realizes that something fishy is going on and stops the program running while they're working on the repair, and then gets the patch and the update out. So it's like it's giving people a little bit of a head start where you would have had to wait, I don't know, 2, 3, maybe even 4 days, maybe even a week in some cases before an update could be released, and then it's got to be updated to all the machines out there. But with the AI, it can actually stop down processes before they get into, before they go viral, and then the update can be released on the other side. And we see that also with some ransomware products that are out there, that the AI starts to recognize something fishy is happening before it actually takes place, and will shut down processes and basically send out alerts to everybody that say, hey, is this okay? Is this supposed to be happening? And you can say, oh yeah, that's supposed to be happening, and just let it go on through, or no, that's not supposed to be happening. We need to look into that.
And is that is that pricing model, I guess, sort of more on the cheaper business end? I mean, I guess there are some bigger companies out there that need to be like, okay, we're investing in separate people to make sure that this is their full-time job to do this. Like they have a lot more money coming in, but maybe these smaller businesses out there just want the softwares that are like 10, 20, 30 a month. And hopefully that would do it. Like, I feel like there's a big broad spectrum of consumer and more startup based pricing models, and then like full-time big company kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think that you're actually, the answer is in the question, and it really boils down to evaluating what it is that you need for your business, and then doing some research and making the best choice there. Because what would work for the kitchen table entrepreneur who has a thriving business, maybe they're a consultant, but doesn't have staff or anything like that. A small antivirus product on a computer and maybe a backup computer would be fine. And then you get into corporate companies that need full IT departments that break into engineers, technicians, security techs, data engineers, all those different types of things. It really is just, it's a matter of strategic planning and things like that really determine what the best path is. So it would be the kind of thing that it would be worth talking with somebody to find out what it is that you need in your business, and then making the best decision from there.
And do you have anything to say to just harp on the importance of it? Because obviously it's a very important subject, and it's got to be a thing that we do more prehab for, obviously, and then like we put in those 5 rings versus the Colonial pipeline, and then it happens after the fact. I don't want there to be news to where then we're like, okay, we got to do something that's bad if we do things after the fact and something bad happens. So is there anything you want to say to really push the driver, and like businesses need to focus on this? Is there anything we can say, just keep saying and repeating to help businesses figure it out?
Absolutely. Yeah. As a matter of fact, there is, because it's kind of something that it's the drum that I beat that I wish I didn't have to, because again, like I said before, everybody thinks that this is a problem for Colonial Pipeline. They think it's a problem for Target. They think it's a problem for big companies that you hear about in the news. But the only reason you hear about those things is because they are big stories that everybody knows about, right? Smaller businesses don't make the news because they just don't have, the story doesn't have as big appeal. But so what tends to happen is small business owners think, well, that's not me. Nobody wants what I've got. Nobody's targeting me for anything. And the truth of the matter is the hackers are not nearly that picky. They don't really set out to, just go after, your business or my business, and then do everything that they can to break into your business. They cast these super wide nets, and they're really just walking through the neighborhood and checking doorknobs until they find a house that's open. And then they go in and they say, oh, here's all this stuff in this house. It's not about, setting a target for a construction business because you know that they do this, or a financial services firm because you know they've got all this information. The plumber, the restaurant, the CFO, or excuse me, the CPA, the food truck, whoever. It doesn't really matter to them, because ultimately the name of the game is, like I said before, is business interruption. And if they can get in there and find some way to compromise what it is that you do in a way that you can't get around it without paying them some kind of money, that's what they're after. So this isn't a that only happens to them, it's never going to happen to me kind of situation. It really is the kind of thing that everybody needs to pay attention to. And the steps that you can take are actually really small in comparison to the blowback from what happens on the back end. I haven't even talked about healthcare and dealing with things like HIPAA violations and all that kind of stuff. If you're in a particular industry that handles personal information, you really, really got to pay attention to that kind of thing.
I almost think too, in that hacking and security issues are almost so broad that the consumers forget about it. Because I completely forgot about the whole Target thing, and yet I still go there to the shop. It's not like it's affecting my brand loyalty or anything. So I think that's a really interesting thing to go over, is brand loyalty in terms of companies that may have had a hack go on, or your stuff was compromised. Would you still use them? I know some people probably left, but I think that's a really interesting space.
You bring up a good point. Again, from a marketing perspective, because those it's like with any kind of issue that a company faces as far as bad press, right?
Mm-hmm.
It really is a matter of doing everything that you can to ride it out and bury the story in good press. So what happens in those cases is like you said, after time, people just kind of forget about that kind of thing, and they're right back to using their credit card. And Target is just an example. Not trying to pick on them in any way, but
I mean, as you said, it's a big company. So we're talking about Colonial Pipeline, Target. I mean, those are really I don't follow cybersecurity threats enough. I mean, it shows up in the news obviously here and there, and it's probably a lot more. It shows up in the news. It's not one of the stories I follow.
Yeah, and it's one of those cases where, like you said, after a while, if there aren't big stories, then people just kind of lose sight of it, because it does kind of fall by the wayside. We do a thing. We have a scanning software that we use for our clients that does what we call a dark web scan. Mm-hmm. So what that does is we can type in your email, and it'll tell us anywhere that your information appears on the dark web. Whether or not that email with any kind of password combination, and what site the breach came from in most cases. Mm-hmm. So you'd be surprised. I've done my own scan and found sites that I hadn't logged into for like 5 years, maybe even sites that are defunct now, that had a breach at some point. Luckily, it was a older password combination, so hopefully nothing got too compromised. But it's really just very interesting how things that we did a long time ago are still out there. You know how people talk all the time about don't put that picture on the web because it's going to stay out there forever. Mm-hmm. Well, same thing applies to this information. It's out there and it's going to stay there.
That's crazy. That's a good I guess comparison. It's a good little something that people can remember too. And as you said, being the drum and telling businesses that, obviously cybersecurity is very important, but also it's like, hey, what you put out there is going to stay up there forever, and people are going to take it. And even if it's a password or a picture, it might stay in a hacker's wallet or whatever for the next 400 years. I don't know.
Exactly. And it's really daunting when you think about it, that a good portion of our information is at the mercy of someone else's security, right? So when you put your stuff in these sites, it's really dependent on how well they are protected as to how well you are protected. So there's a lot of trust that goes into that. And like I said, probably the most simple thing for that goes back to, like we talked about before with the password management, is just not using the same password everywhere that you go. That way, if that site happens to get hacked and you're using your dog's birthday, and I'm using that because today is my dog's birthday, but you're using
happy birthday to your dog.
That's right. I hope he's watching. If you're using a simple password with your regular username in multiple places, if I'm a hacker and I get that information, I've got software that'll run that out to as many different sites as I can and try to break into as many different sites as I can and try to hijack those accounts.
Mm-hmm. I've seen even new businesses out now that will act as like the hacker for you, just to find like security issues in people's, I guess, mesh and all.
Yeah,
that's a crazy concept. I think there's like, oh, let us be the illegal people for you, so we can find the gaps.
Well, you remember me telling you about the techs and engineers that we have on our team that are super smart guys. Well, we do that kind of work. It's called penetration testing. So sometimes people will they'll hire us to test. Basically, it's to test their security. They want to know if we can get in. And again, you don't want to share too much information from a confidentiality standpoint, but sometimes we don't, and sometimes we do. And another thing we do along we talked about employee training is we'll actually send out simulated phishing emails. So those emails that we talked about before with phony links in them or making bogus requests, we'll send those out to teams and see if we can get anybody to click on one of our links or respond to one of the emails in the desired outcome.
And with making so many passwords, I'm sort of going back and forth here, but it just comes as I like being more free flowing. I didn't give you any questions at all, so
Sure.
this is good. But with having multiple passwords that we need to remember, I know more and more people are using password like programs to remember all of those, or like autofill and whatnot. Do you think? I mean, obviously those have still the same ability to be compromised too. Do you have any what's your trust in those and an idea behind that?
So I wish I had a better answer for you. One of my engineers and I had a conversation about this a short while back, and he is not a huge fan. So like if you use Google Chrome, for instance, it'll save all your passwords, which some people think is very convenient, and it is. He's not a big fan of that because apparently it keeps the and I don't want to misspeak, but in layperson's terms, it keeps all the information in plain text, which is easier for people to hack into. He recommended a couple other ones, and I wish I had them for you. Maybe I'll be able to.
It's sticky note and pen.
That's right.
Put it up there.
That's right. Just keep an Excel file. But what I'll do is I'll see if I can find his recommendation before, because he had jotted down a couple that he uses, and what he uses I trust. So I will post a link under the video a little later once I get some of that information. But there are some out there. There are some that are better than others. And again, a lot of that's going to come back to the user doing some research themselves and making the best decision for themselves. Because the technology is ever evolving. I was talking with a friend of mine the other day about how the technology hockey stick through the history of time kind of goes like this right now, like from the beginning of time to where we are now, as far as technological advancement goes. And as things advance, the people who want to get your information, the people who want to get your money, the people who want to do harm, they are motivated to continue to figure out ways to do that, and that's basically what they do.
Gotta get paid to do it. It's their job, their full-time job.
You gotta do what you can to stay in front of it, and then you got to do what you can to adapt once a new way is figured out. Because all these things that we deal with now didn't exist ever how many years ago. They just are, they're either evolutions of an old trick, or they are inventions of a new time.
I'd love to put the link for that once you get it to me, and also even the BitHub, I think you said
BitDefender. I'll get some make maybe a little list of some recommended tools that we
small
use.
Business cybersecurity know-how, or a Twitter thread.
That's right. A little like a jump pack.
Yeah. But that's really all I got. I think that was a great conversation to help small businesses. We went into the publicity behind bigger businesses and just actions that people can take when it comes to mainly just about cybersecurity, but just IT in general. It's just sort of a topic that people like to know of, but it's definitely immediate, and people don't really know of it. That's why there's people who have jobs in this. But if you got any calls to action, I know I put your LinkedIn down below your name, but if you want to tell people how they can contact you, and if you have anything else you want to say, just like as a final, you can, I guess, beat the drum again, as a sign-off statement, you can say that.
Yeah, I think that the name of the game is just being prepared and taking proactive steps to protect yourself, because when it happens, it's way too late. There's a lot more that we can do to save a business or save our clients on the front end than there is on the back end. If we haven't put some steps in place on the front end, then it makes it a lot harder to recover from these types of things. So, and not to mention, it is infinitely less expensive to do it on the front end than it is to do it on the back end. So if there's anything that I would leave with somebody, would be two things. One, you're never too small. People are interested in what you have. And just because you're not a giant corporation does not mean that you're safe. And take whatever steps that you can proactively to protect you're protecting your business, you're protecting your employees, and you're protecting your clients. And it just makes for good business for everybody. As far as finding more information, you can visit our website. It's acs-ilm.com. So acs-ilm.com.
I
And we've
love
got
like a short website.
that's it, buddy. Then we've got, we've got tabs there for the services that we provide. One of those is cybersecurity services, data backup and protection, and then managed IT services that people can look into. And, I'd be happy to talk to somebody. Like I said, if you've got something in place and you want us to try to break into it, we can see if we can do that. If you don't have it,
it's such a weird call to action. It's a good and bad thing, right? It's like I feel like if I was a CEO, or when I am, but I was like, and hiring someone to do this. Remember the show? I don't know if you watch the show, like To Catch a Thief.
Mm-hmm.
Is people actually did this with like homeowners?
Yeah,
and it was a whole. I was. This was like 2000, low 2000s probably. I don't know even how old it was, but it was people would hire actual thieves and they would give them a time frame about probably when they would break in.
mm-hmm.
And then the thieves would try to break into the house, try to find how they could get in and then take what they could. And then they would help the homeowner, I guess, fix those issues.
Well, think about it. Is there any better way to prove that your stuff is working than if it does keep somebody out? I mean, that's true. That's the ultimate test.
True. Well, thanks for chatting, Matthew. I'll definitely see you around at more events as we're both local people. But I think this is definitely a super beneficial conversation for business owners and even just the general consumer.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. Thank you very much for having me on.